Welcome in, everyone. We have a lot to discuss today, given the events that have unfolded in Syria, the Middle East, how it happened, why it happened, what it means for the United States, what it means for the United States military. We're going to get into all of that and much more. But as always, before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts. It helps the video get way more attention, and thus we can help share the stories of American heroes with more and more people, help share the stories of the military with more and more people, which is what the top goal of what we're doing here is. So if you're watching this right now, it is Sunday in the United States of America. Bashar al-Assad's regime has fallen. He fled Damascus. There are rumors that a plane he was on went down, either made a crash landing or was shot down. His brother Maher al-Assad's location remains completely unknown. Rebels, HTS, whatever you want to call them, there's words that I can't even say here because the video will get taken down. We're going to get into that shortly. Have taken over the country. They're in every major city. They're in Damascus. The Assad regime is completely over. The military has surrendered. HTS, which literally was an offshoot, literally a rebrand of extremist organizations that the U.S. spent decades fighting, came under this umbrella run by this guy named Jelani. And let's just be honest about it. You know how much money the United States government is offering for someone to take out Jelani? $10 million. $10 million is what the United States government is offering. That is the bounty the United States government has on the new leader of Syria. Let's make a couple things clear, and then let's dive into this and really kind of give a quick explainer for everyone who's kind of confused, needs information, doesn't fully understand what's going on. So Bashar al-Assad had been the dictator of Syria for 24 years. He took over after his father, Hafez al-Assad, ruled with an iron fist. They were a secular Alawite family. Yes, they were Muslim, but they did not have any extremist beliefs. They really just wanted power and money. Dictators like that are pretty predictable. About 13, 14 years ago, a massive civil war starts in Syria. Shortly after what happened in Libya. There's a lot of reasons for that. You can read about it online. We're not going to dig into them all today. And Assad brought in the Russians, the Iranians, and the people from Lebanon, which, again, I can't even say their name on YouTube without the video getting taken down. And what you saw unfold was a bloody, bloody, bloody conflict. The U.S. comes in. They fight alongside the Kurds. They take parts of the country in the battle of ISIS, against ISIS. And it looked like everything stabilized. It looked like essentially the situation become frozen. The rebels, the bad guys, the organizations loaded with extremists had been stopped cold. The lines had stabilized, and it looked like Assad was going to remain in control of a large portion of the country, backed mostly by Russian air power. Then a little more than a week ago, HTS, which is the organization all these extremists came under, and they rebranded, and they're led by a man who is a designated state sponsor of, a designated you-know-what group. Again, starts with a T, and I can't even say it on YouTube. He becomes the leader. Now, he was a former member of ISIS. He gave an absolutely unhinged interview the other day trying to argue that, yes, he was a terrible, terrible, terrible person who did terrible, terrible things, but now he's changed, and we should take him at his word at that. Turkey backed this. Turkey, who is a NATO ally of the United States, wants Syria destabilized as much as they can so that they can take land, so that they can fight the Kurds. So keep in mind, and this is what I think we need to be clear-eyed about this. Turkey is supposedly our ally. Turkey is funding an organization the United States has declared is an extremist, starts with a T word organization. The leader we are willing to pay $10 million to find. Our great ally Turkey decides to help these people overthrow the Assad regime. They came in essentially blitzkrieg fashion, and shortly before Thanksgiving launched an offensive that apparently no one knew was coming. The Syrian intel didn't know was coming. It looks like the United States didn't know was coming. The Israelis didn't know was coming. Nobody other than the Turks knew was coming, who absolutely 100% greenlit the operation. Anyone who says otherwise has no idea what they're talking about. They took large swaths of land. Assad's military essentially went into full retreat. They tried, like, they were going to hold up around Damascus. They were going to hold up around Latakia. They were going to hold up in the coast. And essentially, the Russians and Iranians cut and run as fast as they could. And once that happened, the military more or less threw their hands up and said, there's nothing we can do here. They started fleeing to Iraq. They started leaving their weapons, changing clothes. And at that point in time, it was only a matter of time before Assad's regime was over. Again, at the making of this video, Assad's location remains unknown. Whether he is alive or dead remains completely unknown. The fact of the matter is, anyone who says they know for sure where Assad is right now is just BSing you. Did he go down in the plane? We don't know. Was he on the plane to begin with? We don't know. Was he going to Russia? We don't know. Was he going to the UAE? We don't know. Was his wife and children with him? Again, we don't know. And it's important to be very cautious with information at this time. But what I really want to talk about is, what does this mean for stability and safety in the region? What does this mean for the United States? And I'm not sure people are really going to like the reality of that situation. Let's talk about it. Syria, and I am no fan of Bashar al-Assad, bad dude, did terrible things, killed a lot of people, oversaw a brutal civil war, just a horrible dude. If he died in the plane crash, he's certainly burning. He's burning where he belongs to be. This is in no way, shape, or form a defense of Assad. Not even a little bit. But let's be crystal clear about who HTS is. HTS is ISIS and al-Qaeda rebranded with a new name and a leader the United States government wants to take out. These are not some freedom fighters. These are not people that love democracy. There's going to be no democracy in Syria. Are you kidding me? And furthermore, and this is the scariest part of it all, what is going to happen to the Christians in Syria? What's going to happen to the secular Muslims in Syria? What's going to happen to the Alawites? What's going to happen to anyone that's not an extremist or aligned with HTS? Well, we know the answer to this because we've seen it before. They're going to carry out mass, I got to be careful with my words here because, again, we're on YouTube. They're going to carry out mass violent attacks. And if you, right now, when the Civil War started, Syria was about 10% Christian. Now it's about 2% Christian. You have about 300,000 Christians in Syria. They have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go. No one will take them. They have no way to defend themselves. They are now at the mercy of an extremist man in an extremist organization that literally is an offshoot, as J.D. Vance tweeted, these are an offshoot of ISIS and al-Qaeda. And now they're in control of an oil-rich country. They're in control of essentially all the weapons the Syrian military had, tanks. And keep in mind, it's not like the pilots just fled and left too. They're there, and if they agree to work for HTS, you will have the first ever, again, I got to be careful with my words, starts with a T, organization that has its own air force. Two things can be true at the same time. Bashar al-Assad can be an evil man who did horrible things and oversaw the death of many of his citizens and invited chaos into the region. And at the same time, HTS, being led by a man the United States has a $10 million bounty on, being backed by our Turkish NATO allies, is not anyone you want running a country at all. I fear there is going to be mass retribution. I fear the innocent Christians in Syria are in incredible danger. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look at what ISIS did when ISIS was running roughshod over the region. Look at what ISIS did before the United States came in and crushed them. If you were not with them, you were killed in the most horrific fashion possible. Does anyone really believe that that's not what's going to happen this time around? These are the same people under a different name. All they did was rebrand. That's why the U.S. wants to take Jelani out. They sent a tweet that is still up, offering the money for the reward. Now, what does this mean for the United States military in Syria? Honestly, we have people with the Kurds. We have people where the oil fields are. I don't know what they're going to do. We have a ton of Delta Force. Rangers are in the region. Intel's in the region. At this point, I'm not sure what can be accomplished by them staying. Other than you might want people there as a counterbalance to when HTS inevitably goes off the rails and starts carrying out mass killings. When that happens, and they claim they're not going to do that. Now all of a sudden, the people who are in ISIS, they're freedom-loving, non-Islamic people anymore. Now they love freedom, and they disregard and completely disavow everything they did when they were part of one of the worst organizations the world had ever seen. So I don't believe that. You shouldn't believe that either, because I know if you're watching this, you have a lot of common sense. It is a tragedy that It is a tragedy what the innocent people face, and that's who I care about. And is the U.S. military going to stick around and try to act as a counterbalance to make sure there are no massacres? Your guess is as good as mine. The Israelis already invaded part of Syria to create a buffer zone, and they've bombed strategic weapons sites, which should tell you everything you need to know. You didn't see you didn't see Israel panic when Assad was president. Better to dance with the devil you know than the one you don't. As soon as Assad falls, the Israelis start striking massive targets and creating a buffer zone. Do you think they're doing that because they trust HTS to be the freedom-loving patriots and pro-democracy people they want people to believe they are? Absolutely not. They're doing that because they know damn well, just like the rest of us, that when you let an extremist organization run an actual country, the outcomes are going to be devastating. I think there is much more conflict on the way. I think there is much more war on the way. It's a tragedy what has unfolded. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. Assad, terrible dude. Again, we don't know where he is. I think people ought to be very careful what they wish for. You just put in, people cheered on an extremist organization taking over a country, and be clear-eyed about what you want, because right now the Christians, the Alawites, the religious minorities, they are in serious danger, and no one is coming to help, and we should all be mature enough and adult enough to discuss that. And quite frankly, at this point, I don't have much else for you. So come back, check it out. We'll see if we have any updates. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below what you think is going to happen with Syria. Where is Assad? Do you know where Assad is? Let us know. What do you think the U.S. military should do? I love reading all your comments. I read all of them, and I'll catch you all next time.